Morning, everyone. Hello and welcome to your Rituals Follow-Up webinar for Support and Accountability. My name's Karen Williams and I'm really excited to be with you this morning. I can see that some people are jumping on, so I'd love to hear that you're here and that you can hear me so that we're all good to go. Welcome, welcome. Hello, thank you for joining. Great to see you, great to hear from you. And today I'll be talking a little bit, but you'll be asking some questions as well and listening into each other's questions about what the challenges are around implementing rituals and routines and why we get stuck and why we stop, and how we can keep moving through that. So if you can just let me know that you can hear me, that would be fabulous. So if you can just pop in the chat box, hello, good morning. Maybe you're still half asleep and you can't quite find the how to do that on your phone. Good morning, and just letting me know that you can hear me. Yes, everyone can hear me. Excellent, fantastic, thank you very much. So wherever we are this morning, whether that's somewhere at home, in your maybe lying on the couch, still in bed, having brekkie, or whether you're out for a walk or exercising, just want to welcome you this morning to our webinar. So this is an impromptu webinar to let you know, to give you some support around implementing. So really getting into action around implementing a ritual and a routine that you've been wanting to do for maybe a while, or you've been inspired recently to try out, or you've been frustrated with yourself and wanting to be more steady in your practice. So that's what this morning is about, is to provide you some real support. So thank you very much for saying good morning, welcome, thank you for being here. I love these kind of webinars or these kind of meetings or conversations, because it's about the real stuff. It's about what are people doing, what's working, what's not working. And a mentor shared recently, this is a mentor who travels around the world and conducts massive meditation and programs for days at a time with over 1,000 people at a time, which is extraordinary, and the experience is amazing. And he shares how he still struggles to get up sometimes to meditate or to do his morning routine. So none of us are immune to the challenge. It's about what we do anyway, even though we've got thoughts in our head saying, no, I'd rather stay in bed, or no, this is ridiculous, it doesn't really work. So really the challenge is, who are we going to be anyway, even though we've got those thoughts going through our mind. So encourage you to grab your journal and your pen or your device, whatever you take notes on, because you'll hear questions, whether I read them out from people who have popped them in the chat box, or whether you raise your hand and we have a conversation. And I'll talk about that in a second, because you'll learn from what other people are asking. And because no doubt, whatever question you've got in your mind, someone else has got that same question. And we don't always know we've got that question, or we know it and we're not sure how to ask it. I know sometimes I need to let things process a little bit before they come out of my mouth clearly. Or sometimes I talk a lot before the idea becomes clear. So it does sometimes take a little bit for us to understand what our questions really are. And so if someone else can ask that question and you listen in, you'll get some gold from them as well. So we'll do that in a second. Excellent, everyone can hear. Everyone say good morning, thank you and welcome. Really wonderful to be with you on a Friday morning. It's a big ask, isn't it? 7 o'clock on a Friday morning when we've got lots going on at home these days. We're working from home, the kids or family at home, or our partners at home, or the dog maybe, or the cat. And we've got to organise all of these things at the moment and make some time for ourselves as well, and somehow implement a ritual and a routine. But why would we do that? Why would we actually bother? So there's so much data and research around morning routine or evening routine. It doesn't matter when you want to implement your rituals or routine, whatever works for you. There's research and evidence on how much. So, for example, evidence around meditation, reducing stress, reducing anxiety, increasing innovative thinking, supporting our mental, emotional, physical well-being. There's statistics on massive research done around thousands of people on the impact on our nervous system and our nervous state, and how it calms our mind. And when we've got a calm mind, we can be more open to the ideas dropping in. So physical health is one thing that's really important to all of us, and especially at this time, keeping our immune system strong. Meditation is proven to help us with that as well. So you can go online and Google the benefits of rituals, routines and meditation, and you'll find a plethora of evidence, so I'm not going to go through all of that, but you can look at Forbes, HBR, I know positivepsychology.com, all of your gurus or mentors that you follow online on social media, you'll find heaps of that. So today is about, okay, we know all that, and now what? How come I'm still not doing the work? How come I'm still not putting it into practice? So here's a couple of things I want to give you before I get into your questions. So make sure you've got some questions to ask shortly, because I really want to know what's getting in your way so I can help you in real time and give you some real stuff to work with and to go forward with. So here's the thing, and a quick recap. Last week, we talked about the 3 layers, yeah? So here's the thing. People most of us try and implement a routine and try and stop, and wonder why it's not working, even though we know it's good for us. Have you ever tried? Has that ever happened to you? Certainly happened to me. So I'm like, yes, this is a great idea. I'm going to do this 3 times a week from now, even though I've not been doing it for the last 20 years. Or I'm going to eat a certain way for the next 3 months and set myself up, even though I haven't been doing it at all that way for the last 6 months. So we get excited, or we inspired, or we get really practical about, yes, we're going to put something into place, and like a routine, and we wonder why it drops off. It's not sustainable, okay? But it's because we're doing it backwards. We're trying to put a routine in without getting really clear on the rituals that are important to us personally, and the values that we have that align with those rituals, or the rituals that align with our values. So we're not actually getting clear on what's really personal and important to us as a human being, as the person that we are today in this moment. And so quiet time, meditation for me is extremely important. But if I had just said, I'm going to put in a routine, I'm going to meditate every day for 5 days a week for the next 3 years, I would be bored after the first day. So I've got to get really clear on what are the rituals and the personal values that I have that will support the implementation of the routine. But before we do that, we've got to get clear on what's getting in the way. Remember, we talked last time about self-responsibility. I know there's some people on the webinar this morning that weren't on the webinar last week. So just a quick recap for you as well. So self-responsibility is at the core. So if I don't know why I'm not implementing what I really am excited in one moment to implement, if I don't know what's going on under the surface, under my reasons and excuses, then I'm not going to do this, and I'm certainly not going to sustain this. Yep. So we get it backwards. We go straight to here thinking, yes, that's a great idea, but then look back 6 months later and go, what happened to that idea? Now, yes, things change. We might change our mind about what works and what doesn't, but mostly because human beings are 95% of program, by the way. So 95% asleep as we walk around through the day, and we're just repeating the past, repeating what we did yesterday, the day before, the day before. 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day run through our mind about the same 5 or 6 things, and it's usually the same 5 or 6 things that we thought about yesterday, the day before, and 5 years ago. So we've got to get really clear on what's in the way, and the way that we do that is understanding what's going on underneath the surface, and that's what today's about. So got that down? Make sure you get that down. Thank you for the recap. Helps, doesn't it? We've got to see things. Have you ever driven by a billboard or an ad or seen something, on your social feed? You see it over and over again, and then eventually, maybe months later, you go, yeah, that's interesting. I actually want to know, what is that? So we have to repeat things and see things again and again. Because remember, Jim Quick, who's a master of the brain and the learning capacity of the brain, says that if we don't write things down, we'll forget 80% of it. And so we can't always capture things in the first go. So remember, we need to focus here, yeah? So I'm just going to go over here a little bit and show you. Before I do that, though, I want you to know that rituals and routines come naturally to some people and not so much to others. They still need to do this because they're not perfect. But for some of us, rituals and routines can seem boring. Does that relate to you at all? So depending on our behavioural or communication profile will depend on how much we gravitate to a plan, a structure, something in place that's steady and systemised. Now, those people, they might find it very easy to put in a routine, but they might find it difficult to be dynamic inside that routine. And if something impacts that routine, to sort of dance around it and keep going. And so then there's other people who, depending on their behavioural communication profile, will do anything to avoid a routine because that just seems boring right from the start. And so what's really important is we know our strengths and know our gaps in this area because it will help us with this, okay? And so if you don't have that information or don't understand what that is, you can go online and find out what's my behavioural profile, or you can talk to me about it. But just having that little bit of insight can be really helpful as well. So start thinking of your questions because I'm going to ask you to share your questions in a second. So so I just want you to draw a line here, and you'll know the analogy of the iceberg, yeah? And so when we're talking about rituals and routines, we're going, you know, I don't have time, yeah? I don't have time to do that, or, you know, I don't know how, or there's no space at home now with kids and everything going on at home. Yep, there's just no way I'm going to be able to do that. Or it doesn't really work anyway, yeah? So these are all the reasons we tell ourselves why. Well, you might not be able to see that, but it says it doesn't work. I know that's a little bit kind of off the camera, I think. So I don't know how it doesn't work. You know, it doesn't work for me. Sometimes I've tried that before, it doesn't work. So these are kind of the top or the tip of the iceberg of the reasons. We think these are the real reasons that we don't implement rituals and routines. But actually this is the surface stuff, yes? So with this daily kind of la, 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 what I call nya, nya, nya going on in our head, you know, those 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day, some of them are those. And they seem really reasonable because, you know, I've tried it before and I've got evidence that it doesn't work for me. Or, you know, I just can't sit still. I'm a busy person and I just can't sit still. And that could be true. We're all very busy. However, it's not the real reason. So the real reason underneath, and we touched on this last time, was I feel guilty. Maybe we'll do this in red. I feel guilty. I want you to think about what are your real reasons, and you might like to share them in the chat box. What's a real reason you know you don't actually implement a ritual and a routine? Sometimes it can be, I'm scared of my thoughts. I'm scared to sit with myself. That was very true for me. What if I do that? What, oh my God, am I going to find out? What else have I written down about that? Oh, here's another good one. So sometimes if we're sitting down, I feel selfish, yes. Selfish here, came out last week. What about also, what was the one I just wrote down before? Oh yes, the fear of missing out. So what if I sit down for 5 minutes and I've missed something? You know, that can be something for us to get really clear about that for ourselves. Is like, really? You're giving up all of these benefits of, let's say, meditation or journaling around physical, emotional, mental benefits, relationship benefits, because we think we're going to miss out on something in 5 minutes' time. So that's something to be really, if we can be honest with ourselves around that. So it's the fear of missing out can be a big one. We don't like to acknowledge that one because that seems ridiculous, but that's one of the things that's really going on underneath the surface. What else have I written down? Yeah, can't afford to slow down, yes. And sometimes that sits up here. We might say that to ourselves or to other people. I just have no time to slow down. I'm busy and important and I just can't do that. Now, you know how I'm saying this. So those who know me know that I'm playing here, but it's true, right? As human beings, it's true. All right, so there's some of the reasons why we don't actually do it. And it comes back to this, yes? It comes back here. Self-responsibility is about what's going on underneath the surface. If I can own that and take responsibility for that, then I can start to get clear on what are the things that are really important to me and align with my values that I want to try and just have a go. Then that will help me establish a steady routine. So remember I said before, we kind of go the opposite when actually we need to go this way. And this helps us understand what's getting in the way here that actually is driving this. Yep. So stop trying to put this in place because that's just hard work and struggle and effort. And we think we'll get a badge for that. But actually, if we do this first, it's the be, do, have model. So who we're being is this. If I'm being aligned with my values and rituals, then a routine is going to be much easier. Doesn't mean it's going to be perfect. Doesn't mean at 4 a.m. every morning we're going to want to get up. I'm not suggesting that you need to do that. But it's going to be much easier and much more flow. Yeah. Otherwise, we're just forcing ourselves and then beating up on ourselves as to why we're not doing it or why we don't stick with it. It's another reason, another way our ego gets to beat up on ourselves. All right, so give me, so now I'm going to give you some instructions around questions. So you'll see it down at the bottom, there's a Q&A box. And so instead of putting them in the chat box, what I'm going to ask you to do is put your questions in the Q&A box. Yep. And so I'm going to bring that up now and put it onto the side. So I would love it if you've got a question to pop it in there, but also I'd love to have a conversation. So if someone would like to put up their hand, which that means I need to put that over there, then I can have a chat with you. And so that would mean that I could use your first name. No one else is going to know who you are, except for me probably. And you would be adding so much value to everyone else, because I promise you, you won't be the only one with this question. So I want you to think about, and this is the purpose of this webinar, yes, is to have a conversation. Remember, I talked about the distinction between content and conversation. So content is what I've been doing over the webinars mostly, is just providing tools, hopefully providing some insights. And so now I want to make more space for a conversation. So we have a question coming through, and I'm going to read that in 1 second. So have a think about your question. Take a moment to ponder and maybe write down the question, or if you've brought your question with you, pop it in the Q&A box so I can have a read. I'll read it out and then I'll answer it, because I want this conversation, you to have this experience of sort of sinking a bit deeper into what's really going on for you. Yeah. So have a think about that while I read this question. So thank you, Jess, for your question. So I'm going to read it out. So morning. I can sabotage my rituals and routines and goals because I feel the results and outcomes are too far out of reach. Yes. Or take too long. Totally, I get it. It's like I tell myself, is it worth it? And it can wait for another day. Totally. Again and again. Do you have any strategies to deal with this mindset? This is such a good question, because as human beings, we will put things off like this that we know are important until our wake-up call. And I can't say it any plainer than that. We will wait for our wake-up call. And this is the nature of human being, not just you, Jess. This is the nature of the race, of our species, yes? We will wait for the wake-up call before we go, oh, now I need to do something. So, for example, you might be rushing around for a few months at a time until you might start to feel a little bit achy in your body, or a little bit like you've got a cold coming on. Not such a great topic talking about that now, but you've had that experience before. We all have. And then when we start to feel less than vibrant, less than our full health, then we go, oh, now I need to pop the vitamin C. Now I need to have some broth. Now I need to have some rest, right? So we don't usually listen or take care of ourselves mentally, physically, spiritually, and sometimes financially, unless something happens like that. And then we go, okay, well then I'll just fix that up, and then we keep running. So there's no miracle magic wand that's going to go, oh, now I don't need to worry about if it's going to work in the future or not. I actually need to make a choice now. Now, here's the thing. It's going to feel wrong. So I want everybody to know, choosing against what we've done all of this time in our lives. So if we haven't had rituals and routines mainly for most of our lives, or a steady one, say around meditation or journaling, and they're one of the two that I keep mentioning because they're really, really powerful. If we haven't had a constant practice, then not having it is going to feel comfortable, because that's familiar and that's what we've always done. So we're used to getting up at 6 o'clock instead of 5:30, for example. So that's comfortable. And we don't know what we don't know. And so therefore, getting up at 5:30 instead of 6 feels wrong, uncomfortable. Our body's going to scream at us. Our mind's going to go, what are you thinking? It's winter. Winter's coming. People don't get up that early, right? So it's going to feel, we've got to be willing and understand that it's going to feel wrong. Because as human beings, we're looking for comfort. Our brain's looking for what feels right. So that's the first thing that's really important to know. You have to go against what feels wrong. Yeah? Or you have to go against what feels right and do what's wrong, and do what's uncomfortable. And we all know about, we've got to feel the uncomfortability. Everyone talks about that. But it's in those moments where the rubber hits the road, where we've got to choose into the future we're living into, as opposed to the past that we've always had. And now the other part of your question was, don't set it too far out in the future. So remember I said, you're thinking here, Jess, at the moment, you're thinking, okay, it's going to take me ages to get any kind of benefit. Just do today. Just like you put money in the bank, just put some money in the bank today. And then get up tomorrow and go, I'm just going to put some money in the bank today. And then I promise you, in a week, in 2 weeks, and 3 weeks, you'll go, wow, this feels different. This feels amazing. I don't want to give this up. But at the moment you're thinking from here, rather than going, what's really getting in the way, it's more like probably the feeling of guilt or selfishness, something like that. Tell me if this helps, Jess. All right, we've got some more questions coming through. Jess, give me an answer back if in the chat box to say if that's helpful for you or not, but I'm happy to have a chat with you if you'd like to put your hand up. Just checking to see if anyone's got their hands up yet. A couple more questions. I have just been surviving over the last 12 months with some pretty personal major things happening. I'm worried if I start these practices like journaling, which I've done over the years since I was young, we'll have to come totally. No, totally, I get you. And that's why we keep ourselves here. So the question is about, what if I actually open this sort of well of emotion? Usually we just keep that lid on it and we go about our day from the neck up, project managing our lives, everything in our lives. And then we know just under the surface, that's the scared to sit within myself. Yeah, I'm putting it at the board, if you can see it. Yes, you can see it. And so your question is, what if I do that? Well, it's actually going to happen. But we undersell ourselves as human beings in our capacity to be with our emotions because we've never learned. And it's no one's fault. We're just born into the human condition, which is think, don't feel. And everything around us supports that think, don't feel. Our business environments think, don't feel. Bring your intelligence, don't bring your emotions. Leave your emotions at the door, pick them up on the way out. So we're conditioned that way in our families. We're born into environments where our parents have never learned this. So there's no capacity usually in our parents, unless we're born into an environment where parents have done their own work or they were loved in that way. But mostly that we're born into a situation where people don't have the capacity to feel their own emotions, so they don't have the capacity to hold space for their children's or other people's emotions. So we never learn that for ourselves. So it's a practice. We actually have to. One of my mentors said to me a while ago when I went through some major personal stuff, one of those times in our lives, and I said, I just feel like I want to fall apart. And she said, well, then just let yourself fall apart. And it was the best thing that was ever, one of the best pieces of advice that I ever received. Just let yourself fall apart then. And the reason I could do that is because I had someone who could hold space for me and not try and fix my emotions, not try and make it better, not try and tell me it's going to be okay, because as human beings, we're so scared of our emotions. We're so scared that we think we have to do something for people who are upset. The greatest gift that we can give others is hold space for people. And when they're in the depths of grief or despair or hopelessness, we can just be with them and honour where they're at, because the nature of human being is we will move through that and rise into our joy and our love and our connection. But if we don't allow space for both, we're just keeping a lid on it, and at some point, it's just going to blow, yeah, or you're just going to fully retreat. So yes, that's going to happen. And if you can tap into a community or a space or someone, a friend, a mentor, someone who can hold space for you and not try and fix it or not try and rush you forward, that's every human being needs that. And that's a big part of my coaching. And when people experience that space being held for them, it's like they find their own answers. You will find your own answers within that space. So there's no getting around it, unfortunately. But you can do this. You've got this, and it's just about breathing and just like letting yourself fall apart and just reaching out. I'd only reach out to a couple of people in my life that I feel that I can let myself fall apart with. Everyone needs that, but it's not safe always to do it with everyone in my life or everyone in our lives. And sometimes when you might try it, you'll feel that icky feeling of they're trying to make it better for you, and you'll know in yourself, that doesn't feel right. Yeah. So find those people you feel safe and not judged to be just like a mess. And I promise you, we're scared that if we let ourselves be a mess, that we'll stay there forever. And I promise you won't. What happens is if we don't let ourselves feel those feelings, we stay stuck in the tension of trying to hold them down until, again, we blow or we retreat fully. Yeah. Hope that's helpful. Another question is, I find that I do my ritual with gym with a personal trainer 3 times a week, where I have a responsibility to that person, but I'm not that self-motivated to go to the gym by myself. I self-sabotage myself and come up with every excuse. If you have to go to the gym by myself, why is that? That's such a great question. So the question is, I'm really good with an accountability framework at the gym with my PT, but I'm not good doing it myself. I don't reckon there's anything wrong with that, actually. I think you've got to know your strengths and know your gaps. Now, you might be saying, Elle, you might be saying that this is a problem for you. And if you want to shift that within yourself, then again, it's this way. But I think it's important that we know our profiles, our behavioural profiles, and know what support we need. Know where we need accountability and know where we don't. And then if we do need accountability, this is why I did today, is because we all need accountability in some areas. So I'm wondering if you want to have a conversation about this. If you're happy to put your hand up, there's a little button at the bottom where you can put your hand up and we can have a chat. Let me know if you'd like to do that. But I would say to you and to everyone, know yourself. And if the gym, if you're using that to beat up on yourself, consider that that may be another pattern, like an excuse to beat up on yourself, rather than, you know what, I don't work well at the gym without a PT or an accountability framework. Okay, so what am I going to do instead at the moment? Do I work one-on-one in a park with a PT, which I believe we're still allowed to do? Or do I be okay at the moment with not doing gym and finding something else? So it's about not expecting ourselves to be perfect at everything. So if that's helpful, awesome. But if you want to go deeper than that, I'm happy if you want to put your hand up, you can put your hand up and we'll have a chat. I'll open you up. I'll open up the conversation. All right, let me see. Thank you, Jess. That was great. Very helpful. Excellent. All right, so who would like to, thank you. There's a couple more questions. Wonderful. I'm glad that was helpful, Nori. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Don't do it alone. If you need support, reach out to people. And, you know, if I can support you, let me know. I would tap into these events every couple of weeks. That will help you as well. Tracy's got a question as well. Now, if anybody would like to put up their hand and have a conversation, I'd love to chat with someone so that everyone can hear you. No one will be able to see you, so don't worry about that. But we'll be able to hear you, so that could be fun. I'd love to do that as well. So pop your hand up down the bottom and I'll keep a lookout for hands up. So Tracy has a question. I'll just answer that question. No, Tracy, they won't see you in your dressing gown. I promise you, we practiced this yesterday, role play, to make sure that wouldn't happen, so people could stay in their dressing gown this morning. So if you want to put your hand up, I'd love to hear your question. So I'll look out for that hand while I'm looking for the next question. Okay, so maybe, as you know, I'm still learning about this webinar. Maybe, Tracy, I could answer live. Can you hear me, Tracy? Can you, no, okay. So do you want to pop your hand up? Thank you everyone for being patient with me. I'm learning this piece about the nuance about this technology. Okay, so I'm waiting for Tracy to put her hand up if she'd like to. And in the meantime, I have another question. So Rachel is asking how to manifest that I will accomplish my daily set of goals as a ritual. So kind of how to believe, I think that's what you're asking, Rachel. How do I believe that I'm going to accomplish my daily set of goals as a ritual? One of the things in the morning can be a great visualization practice, but one of the things about visualization that I used to get wrong, and I know that a lot of people have a missing piece here as well, is we've got to feel the feelings rather than just see the scenes. So for example, if you wake up in the morning and you're thinking about what do you want to achieve for that day, so you might run it through your mind as a visual practice, but if you're not actually taking it into an emotional experience, then it's not as powerful and it'll still come from a doing place rather than a being place. So you remember with the be, do, have, us human beings, we focus more on, if I do all the right things and I say all the right things, then I'll have all the things that I want, and then I'll be the person, the leader, the entrepreneur that I'll want to be, yes? But actually human beings in the ontological model, which is the study of human being, is we need to focus on who we're being, which is what this is about and what this is about, who I'm being. And who I'm being is thoughts, this is the link to the emotional experience, thoughts and feelings. So our state of being is made up of our thoughts and feelings. So in the morning, if I'm imagining my goals being achieved for the day, I need to feel it as well, because that's going to shift this, which is then going to drive this and drive that, which is this, which is then going to drive that and drive that. Don't you love it? Don't you just love it? Did you get me? Yeah, let me know if that makes sense. So focus on your thoughts and feelings for the day. So visualize it, but feel it as well, as if it's already happened. That's what's going to have you manifest your goals. Hope that helps, Rachel. All right, what else have I got here? Other questions? I think a few other questions coming through. Tracy, have you got your hand up? Let me know, because I can't see it. So I'm hoping that I haven't missed it. So another question is, I've managed to implement a morning 15-minute meditation. High five to you, Jason. Starting this week, however, have failed each evening to meditate prior to bed, despite telling myself to do this, allowing myself to be distracted. That's so fun, isn't it, being distracted? How can I refocus myself to this new routine? Do you want to have a chat, Jason? Would you be willing to pop your hand up? Because I think this is a great question, because maybe other people would be experiencing, I'm putting a ritual in place here, but I'm not doing it here, and I'm getting distracted. So would you be willing to put your hand up? Let me see if I can. Yes, Rachel, fantastic that was helpful.
Hi everyone. Karen, is it okay if I just share my experience? It's not so much a question, but it might be helpful, and it just sort of reinforces what you've shared.
Sure, very quickly, go ahead. Yeah, I'd love to hear, if you share your experience, I'd love to hear it less from an advice perspective and more from what you learned.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll be very, very concise with this, but basically I'm an extrovert, and I've used every single one of those excuses that you've gone through below and above the surface, and was big on self-sabotage, etc. I lost both my parents in a period of 17 months, and that's a real oh shit moment in your life.
Yeah.
And through that, I actually went inside myself for the very first time, and it was a bit scary, and I think it has changed me a lot, but I'm far more considered now. I meditate, I journal, but I'm not highly disciplined around it. And I think the thing that I've learned is just be kind with yourself and just do it when you feel like doing it.
Yeah. Yep. Beautiful. I love the being kind. I think that's really, really important. And thank you so much for sharing, those, and I can't even imagine and wouldn't even attempt to say that I know your experience, but with the pain that you've been through and the year that you've had or more, to be able to reflect back on that and now share is beautiful and generous, and really appreciate your humanity and being willing to open up and share what you've learned about being kind, because sometimes we have to learn that for ourselves as opposed to we hear it, but we don't always know what that feels like. So I love that you've had that journey. So thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. And thank you for being patient with my technology issues.
No problem.
Is there anything else you wanted to say, Tracy?
No, I think that's it.
Amazing.
Just be kind to yourself and do it when you feel like it.
Beautiful. Thank you. All right. So let me see. Now, it looks like I'm looking for other questions, and I apologise for that mishap. I have lots of gifts and talents, but technology is not one of them. But we're doing well. So there was another question I saw that was asked, but now the question and answer boxes reset itself. So if you have another question, please share it. And so I love what Tracy said about being kind. So if you were on the Instagram live with me the other day, the other evening actually, you would have heard me talk about being kind and being generous and just really taking care of ourselves through, especially this stressful time. And again, but different behavioural profiles will have different ways that they gravitate to rituals and routines. So some will love it and just jump into it, and some will find it very challenging and get distracted easily, or find it something that they just would prefer to do when they feel like it. So when we feel like it, we just have to be aware of, I will just add to what Tracy shared, we have to just be aware that when we feel like it can often be what's taking us away from the future we're actually wanting to create. Now, just finding that nuance and that balance for us is really important. Being kind is absolutely, do I want to sleep in today? Go for it. Yes. So it's just knowing what that feels like and if that feels true and right for me today, and also going, you know what, is that